Astaghfirullah! The black man cannot be God, for Al-Shaitan himself looks just like a black man.
Are you sure?
Yes, but it's okay. I understand. For I myself mistake Satan and Allah all the time.
With all due respect, the nation knows exactly who Satan is. The blue-eyed devil.
Seriously, Malik, like I once said, Satan looks like Nabta bin al-Harith, and he was a sturdy black man with long flowing hair and inflamed eyes.
Well, with all due respect, does the Quran not say in Surah 21:02 that the day the horn will be blown, we will gather the criminals and they will be blue-eyed?
Yes, but that's not what that really means. And so here we are. How did I get into this? Well, I used to be a wannabe graph artist. That is me with a spray paint can proving I was a graph artist. And maybe I was 100 pounds lighter and beardless. One good, one not good. A lot of my friends that were involved with this type of culture and stuff were into 5% talk. And when I say 5% talk, I'm going to have to explain it, but I'll explain a little bit right now. The idea is that 5% of the population is aware of what's going on. They know who they are, right? The other 85%, and hold on, there's one more category. I'm not good at numbers, but I know that. The other 85%, the common person, they are deaf, dumb, and blind. This is official lingo I'm using, by the way. So they're deaf, dumb, and blind, 85%. So to be called an 85%er by a 5%er is like essentially an insult. It means you're like the masses, you're ignorant. Then there's the 10% that's left. Those are people like Christians and maybe Orthodox Muslims who have an awareness of the truth but choose not to disclose it, hiding the truth in essence. And so a 5%er is someone who holds to that. Well, at this time in the 90s, within hip-hop culture, groups like Wu-Tang Clan and other groups were promoting this ideology actually kind of hidden in the slang of the lyrics. Unless you knew what was being said, you wouldn't know what was being said. But my friends did, and so they would be talking to me about this stuff. So most of you probably heard of Islam. If you were around during 9/11, you heard about it. You learned more about Islam on 9/11 and other places since then. Me, as a young person, the first time I heard about Islam was actually not Orthodox, proper Islam. It was these deviant offshoot groups, specifically 5%ers, commonly known as the nations of the gods and the earths, which was a breakaway from the Nation of Islam, which most of us probably heard about or at least know who Farrakhan is. So that's how I got into it. And no, I was not a good graffiti artist, but I did have fun doing it. And yes, I did get caught. And yes, I did have to do community service with killers. That's why I got out of it. Anyways, that's that. I'm sticking to it. Nation of Gods of Earth, sometimes abbreviated NGE, 5%ers. They are these guys. So this guy is Clarence 13X. Clarence 13X was in the Nation of Islam. But then he broke away from the Nation of Islam. And they had beef for a while. But now they're a little more friendly because these guys are NOI members with the final call. But this place they're at, when you ever see that 7 with that star, that's NGE stuff, Nation of Gods of Earth, a.k.a. 5%ers. That's not NOI stuff. You see what I'm saying? So they came out of it, but they're a little more friendly now than they used to be. History of the 5%ers. They are a splinter group that broke away from the NOI in '64 under the leadership of Clarence Puddin, 13X. Why do they call him Puddin? Because he was so smooth. The name is derived from their belief that they are the chosen 5% of humanity who live a righteous Islamic life, not very Islamic, and thereby have manifested the true divine nature of the black man who is God or Allah, source on the screen. So they are the guys who are a lot more like, peace to the gods. What's up, God? A little bit more like that. Very common, especially in 90s hip-hop. But anyone see the Book of Clarence? Does anyone know what it is about? Anyone seen the trailer or something like that? Very likely it was named the Book of Clarence because of Clarence 13X, the founder of the NOI. Because when you watch interviews with the guy who made the Book of Clarence, he talks about, we are gods and you should address us as such. This is British accent. So here you have the NOI talking about who the 5% are. The righteous teachers and civilized Muslims. So the 5%, along with the Nation of Islam in general, believe that there's uncivilized masses and they need to teach people how to have a proper civilization. And so that's what they're doing there. This group, rather than the Nation of Islam, was primarily responsible for disseminating, popularizing, and reinterpreting the lessons. This is the 120 Supreme Wisdom lessons, or teachings of Elijah Muhammad among the adolescent generation of the 60s in the New York metropolitan area. Now what happened is, a lot of these folks who got these sort of secret underground lessons, then they became rappers, and that's why a lot of 90s hip-hop has a lot of this stuff in it. Modern day hip-hop doesn't have as much. It's more sort of underground rap, or the old guys who are still rapping. In the 25 years since, the influence of the 5% Nation, or the Nations of the Gods of Earth, as they are now known, has grown enormously. Many of the lyrics in contemporary rap music make direct reference or strong allusion to 5% ideology. That's from the same book as listed before. So Clarence 13X was the founder. He was actually a teacher of a mosque, but what happened is he was teaching these secret lessons, and they didn't want them to be taught to just novices, but he thought it was important for the youth to get these secret lessons. So when he taught these secret lessons, they basically kicked him out because they're like, you're not supposed to be disseminating that to noobs. So what are you doing? He's like, well, they need to know. So they had a separation here. And he started his own thing, which is really mosque-less. They have a couple storefronts. Like I visited the storefront that they have there. I got a picture coming up somewhere I might try to show. But as I had mentioned before, the Book of Clarence, a movie, which just came out in January, I just did a review of it on my channel, has a lot of this in there and a lot of Gnostic influences. And really, that's the problem. When you see this, a lot of you are tempted to go, look, woke Jesus. That's not really the issue. The issue is the other influences going on here that are essentially anti-Christian. Now, that doesn't mean they never get Jesus' quotes right, but a lot of it is not right. They have Jesus speaking the Gospel of Thomas in here, which is a Gnostic forgery. Jay-Z, who funded it at the tune of $40 million, has been very friendly. He's from Brooklyn, remember, with the Nation of Gods and Earth. That pendant is their sign, their symbol there. Oh, you want to get that picture? Just put Jay-Z, you'll find it. Jay-Z. But yeah, so there's a whole bunch of people who have co-signed NGE beliefs in some way. Some of these are older rappers. There's Jay Electronica, Erykah Badu, a whole bunch of others. Won't go through all of them, but a whole bunch of people. Rakim, RZA, Bada Boom, Bada Bing, Carmelo Anthony. There's one of their schools. Are you brokenhearted? Say what? Say what? Where? Oh, I don't know. I don't think in any meaningful way. We had a Tupac sighting in here, I thought for a second. So they have these street academies. They're like these storefront places, and they just basically get together and talk about the mathematics of the day. There's Clarence 13X with the folks. They've opened up a few restaurants, such as Allah's Kitchen, and they've even got a street named after them in New York. 5%ers Allah Justice Square. That's in New York. So again, you think I'm crazy? Why is Vocab talking about this? In certain sectors of society, this has been very influential. The whole street named after this, it's literally called 5%ers, the street. Now, granted, they put it on top of another street, so it's kind of like those second names, not as big, but nonetheless. Let's look at some of their basic beliefs here. The black people are the original people of the planet Earth. So when you get into the original, they talk about the original man, a lot of that stuff comes out of them. Black people are the fathers and mothers of civilization. This is stuff that the NOI taught, but they really kind of blew it up to another level and went further with it as well. That the science of supreme mathematics is the key to understanding man's relationship to the universe. So a common thing for them to get together is not really to worship or study the Bible, it's to drop today's mathematics. What's today's mathematics, son? Oh, L to the 7th square, and they do all this kind of stuff, right? And a cipher, which means a circle in Arabic. Islam is a natural way of life, not a religion, so it's a culture, basically. Education should be fashioned to enable us to be self-sufficient as a people. Each one should teach one according to their knowledge. Common phrase that they use is each one teach one. The black man is God, and his proper name is Allah. Arm, leg, arm, head. It's saying it's an acronym for man. You see that? Now, it's yeah, I think it's like, but so when they do this, it's not literal. It's like the literal meaning of the word is not relevant in a way to this religion. So they have these different like acronyms like this that function didactically for them. Our children are linked to our future. They must be nurtured, respected, loved, protected, educated. Doesn't sound bad to me. United Black Family is a vital building block of the nation. And so this is the secret wisdom they taught, the 120 degrees of life, the supreme wisdom lessons. I've done shows on this as well, where I go through the supreme mathematics, the supreme alphabet, the 12 jewels of Islam, the student enrollment, the English lessons, the lost found Muslim nation. I didn't go through all of these, but I went through some of these. The actual facts, the solar facts, and teachings for the civilized. This is all stuff in there. You can get it on Amazon. Now, the point to show you this is sort of the key to the religion of this is esoteric knowledge. And again, I'm not one of those guys who makes everything Gnostic, but it's very Gnostic. Salvation by enlightenment, in essence, which was one of the earliest heresies after Judaizers that we had to deal with as Christians. So this is a different version. So again, I try to tell people, some of you get caught up on the color issue, the anti-American. I don't think you should get caught up in that. I think you should get caught up in more fundamental issues when you deal with guys like this. Because even if they're not as prominent, this kind of stuff doesn't go away. That's why you got to ask, what do you believe? We don't have time to go through all this, but just know I put it in a slide, so that means I'm worth it to bring me out, because this shows true preparation, doesn't it? So I'll see you next year. Thank you very much. Yes. Oh, okay. You guys got good timing. I like it. But with that, we have a little bit of time for just one or two questions. Well, yes, sir. Yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about what happened to Fard. That's what he asks. There's some evidence he was imprisoned. There's some evidence there may have been that kind of foul play. But I've read so many different versions. We don't know his true ethnicity. We don't know his true birthplace, I don't think. There's speculation based upon some documents, but they contradict each other. I don't know. What do you think? You got something for me? Oh, I thought you were about to say, I know what happened to Fard. He's in my pop's basement. Okay. Yeah, no, I really don't. I don't know. It seems like he might have got locked up for something and never came out, but that's so speculative. Of course, if you ask one of them, they got conspiracy theories about it. Some have like weird religious ideas about it, like this. So that is one of those. God, what happened to Fard? He's like, he's right down there. See? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, brother.
So if you were talking to someone in the Nation of Islam just out in the street, what angle would you take? And I guess
Always choose the right angle. That's sorry, man. I'm a dad. You know, what do you expect?
yeah, what angle would you take as far as like a conversation about Jesus, like bring them out of that? Like how would you approach that conversation?
Right. Well, if you've talked, witnessing is witnessing. So we've got people in NOI, but we've got regular old Joe Six-Pack. We've got, right? It can be a process a lot of times. So I first reiterate what I said earlier about asking questions. You know, like whenever they make a statement, I would base my questions upon their statements. And so it's easy to start with, hey, tell me what you believe and why you believe it. That's a great question to ask. Now, hopefully, there's like, do you have 5 minutes or do you hopefully have longer, right? I think that probably matters too, right? If you have a short time, the gospel in a nutshell, and what else can you do, right? You know, so you know John 3:16, you know some other passages, and you do that. But if you hope to establish something further, those questions are important and fundamental. And to me, I would like to hammer on the contradiction of the idea of Fard being a savior versus Jesus being the savior. There's other stuff to discuss, but I like that one because then you're not just doing something like defending the Trinity. I'm okay with defending the Trinity, but notice how it doesn't put anything upon them. If you're pushing them to have to defend the idea of Fard being a savior, then I think it's good because then, first of all, you can talk about how Jesus is a savior. You're showing a direct contradiction. You're pushing something that I don't think a lot of them could meaningfully defend in any meaningful way. So to me, that's a great weak point to push upon, is the idea of Fard being a savior.
So how would you address that?
Well, if I was going to go there, it's like a lawyer, supposed to know the answer to the questions, and then you ask another question based upon that. But maybe it would say, I've heard that Fard is considered a savior. Do you think Fard is a savior? Or just ask them first to make sure they think that Fard is a savior. Then, however they answer, say, what did you mean? So if they say, well, sort of, well, can you explain how is he and how is he not? and just kind of follow that path. I would just kind of find out where they are in it. And if they don't know, you know, you can pull up their official statements and documents pretty easily. Say, well, this is what your documents say. They'd be shocked to find a Christian who knows something about their beliefs. Yes, sir.
What, if they don't believe in an afterlife, what is their salvation?
Little unclear on that, and that's where they do have some kind of apocalypse, and it seems like what they seem to envision some kind of future where they're basically in charge. So it's weird. When they say afterlife, I think they kind of mean according to the misconception that they think Christians have. I don't think they think there's no existence past death, though, from what I can understand. It's a little confusing, some of their eschatology. Yes, I was going to try to say eschatological beliefs, but then I gave up. So I would ask sort of about heaven and hell and see, because my understanding is they're just saying not according to what you guys think it is. Because I think the mothership, when it comes to get them, is taking them somewhere, not just destroying America. So I don't have all that fleshed out. So I would ask and push and try to figure it out. And I think it basically involves them being in charge. Now, the nation of gods and earths, they try to map that a little bit out by having people with like powers and abilities and stuff like that, ruling planets and stuff like that. So that's a good segue to subscribe to my channel, youtube.com/Vocab Malone. Any final questions, my man?
I do have a question. So do they follow Muhammad?
They'll say they do, but it doesn't really seem like it.
Because, I mean, all the research I've done, and I've done a lot of research with the whole David Wood and all that, but Muhammad appears to be a white guy.
Yeah, he's described in those types of terms. There's a question of if it's symbolic or literal, but he's described in those terms.
Yeah, with black slaves.
The whiteness of my thigh.
Yeah. So that just doesn't seem to...
So they have apologists for this issue. Basically, the charge that they themselves are following a white religion, basically. And some of it gets kind of technical. So what's interesting about some of their more high-level guys is they ask questions that challenge Islamic orthodoxy. And it's very fascinating to see. For example, the Quran is filled with we passages, you know? And Muslim will say royal we or something like that, right? They might say, but the Quran itself doesn't say it's a royal we. The Nation of Islam guys will say, this is the gods, man. This is like the plurality of gods, because they're not monotheists. So they challenge common conceptions that Muslims would have because of that. So they're not really following it. They're really not. They barely quote the Quran, honestly. You notice how many of those references were to Jesus? You know, that's really, it's almost like just a way to get away from the Bible to say it's Islamic, but it's almost like really a Christian heresy. I'm not saying it's Christian. I'm saying a heresy that arises out of our circles, nonetheless. One more question. Yes, sir.
Do you think that Nation of Islam 5%ers actually believe in like the Yaqub myth?
They think genetics confirms a reality. So they think it may have a symbolic element to it, but they think from what I've talked to some of them, by the way, the essence of it is real, and they think modern genetics has confirmed it. So they think it's a symbolic way to describe some kind of reality, genetically speaking. Maybe one more, since I answered that so quickly.
So I was here at the beginning.
Shame.
This is 10 minutes. I don't know if you already kind of went over it, but do they use the Quran as a source of their beliefs?
They will quote it, and they will so that it aligns with their belief. But when you read the Quran and then look at Nation of Islam, and especially 5% beliefs, it's not monotheistic. It's clearly contradictory. So we do have a skit on this. If you ever see me do something that only an idiot would do, which is dress up as Muhammad and be interviewed by various characters, or interview them rather, in the Boom Boom Room, we have one where John McCrae plays a Nation of Islam member, and I interview him, and Muhammad exposes the Nation of Islam member as not being very Islamic. But then the Nation of Islam member also exposes Muhammad. It's great. You've got to see it. Yeah, boom.
In the Quran, obviously, correct. God Allah is not born.
Yes, but Anthony Rogers has done some work showing that may not be actually accurate, because it seems like Allah, according to other sources within Islam, has a butt. Yeah. So it's a little perplexing. Yeah, shoulder, everything. So a little perplexing. So they can't help it that the thing they chose to derive from is also contradictory. All right, guys, I have some books out in the lobby. Maybe I'll see you out there, and it's been great. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
But I was always told you were a great liberator of slaves.
Yes! I once purchased the freedom of a slave who pledged allegiance to me.
Praise Allah. How did you accomplish this feat of liberation?
I purchased the freedom for the Muslim slave by giving his slave master not just one, but two of my black slaves in return.
So, you freed one slave by trading him for two of your black slaves?
Exactly! You could even say I was the 7th century Frederick Douglass. Well, except that if you did, you would be killed for describing me as black. But still, you get the idea, right?
You're black.